Good evening, beautiful people.
And good morning.
Yeah. Depending on when you are listening or watching this podcast, thank you for another episode of Mose Knows. Big time matchup for Texas as they are going into Starkville to play Mississippi State. The cowbells will be ringing. And after that performance last week against Kentucky, we can't trust this offense to play well on the road. Simple as that. It's just been a track record at this point. Ohio State, you can count Kentucky, you can count Florida, and low key, the first half against Oklahoma, I know it's not technically a road game, but it was half a road game, and they played not good for half of the game. And so, I mean, that's just simply what it is right now with this Texas offense. The consistency isn't there on the road. And so this test against Mississippi State is going to be big time. But of course, we got that coming up with over enemy lines. You know, we love that segment, going and talking to somebody who is covering the team that Texas is playing. This time we have a great guest for that. But for right now, I just want to tap in for a little bit of what's going on, breaking news, or not breaking per se, but big time news for Texas this week that just dropped. Michael Taaffe being injured for the foreseeable future. He injured his thumb. And when I say injured, I mean broke. He broke his thumb against Kentucky. Reports say that he broke it early in the fourth quarter, played all through the fourth quarter with it, played through overtime with it. Remember, Michael was a pivotal piece when it comes to that goal line stand against the Wildcats on Saturday. So he did all that with a broken thumb. Sources tell me that the thumb was just swollen. It was pretty bad once overtime hit. But as anyone who knows Michael Taaffe, he's just going to fight through it and play through it. And so he had surgery on Monday. There is no timetable for when he will be back, but some people would suggest, and I guess my sources as well have suggested that he'll be ready after the bye week against Georgia, but it could be against Vanderbilt next week. I mean, that's kind of not next week, but 2 weeks. Well, yeah, next week. I think they play Vanderbilt next week. And so that would be like the hope, is that fastest route will be against Vanderbilt, but more realistic, it will probably be after the bye week against Georgia. But yeah, Dion.
Or did you notice? I mean, watching the game, did you notice?
No,
Did he play any different?
not like I said, he was a part of that goal line stand. So no, didn't really notice it. Didn't really see it on the broadcast. It just kind of came out. It was weird that we didn't talk to him on Monday. That was kind of like the sign. You know, I do that like Mookie Monday thing, and usually it's just a soundbite from him on a Monday presser. The thing I found most interesting. So I've been doing that for about a year now. Crazy enough, and he didn't show up on Monday, and usually he does. Like that's why I do it, because there's a consistency. I know he's always going to pull up, but he didn't pull up, and like it didn't really cross my mind like that. Like, oh, something's wrong. It was more so like something came up with his schedule. That's what I thought. But then, yeah, the news broke. News broke. It's like, no, he had surgery. That's why he wasn't there at the Monday presser. But I kid you not, bro. Have my first Adam Schefter moment. Like it really was a.
I know you was excited.
I had my first like Adam Schefter moment. Can I hear you, Dion? Talk for me real quick.
Mic check, right. Mic check, mic check.
There we go. Yeah, I had my first Adam Schefter moment. That's how I found out about the injury. So I kid you not.
I was wondering, how'd you stumble upon that? Was that somebody came to you? Did you do some digging and seeing why he wasn't there? How did that happen?
Okay, so crazy story. I'm getting a haircut, and the source that I'm talking about texted me. It was like, hey, do you have a moment to talk? Mind you, this source never texted me. So I just have their number. I was like, yeah, I mean, can you give me like 15? I had no idea. Like my first thought goes to, did I post something that I wasn't supposed to post and you want me to take it down? That was my first thought. I was like, crap. I'm thinking like, what did I post about Taaffe? But I didn't, because there was no Mookie Monday. So I'm like, what could it be? And so got done with the haircut, called him immediately, and they were just like, yeah, this is so crazy to me. They're like, yeah, we really wanted you to break the story. And so, you know, Michael really trusts you. You know, he thinks you're a really good journalist and stuff like that. And he wanted you to be the one to kind of break the news. Of course, the national reporter somehow, some way, it got leaked. Because it wasn't a local guy that leaked it. It was one of the national guys that covers college football. And they were like, we don't know how they got that information. We have no clue. We were going to wait until Wednesday to tell you about it so then you could post it. But somehow they got that information out on Tuesday and it was all over Twitter. At that point, it dropped on Twitter, I guess, right when I started my haircut. I didn't see it on Twitter until they told me on the phone. And so I pulled out my phone. I'm like, oh, crap. Yeah, it is kind of blown up. Like it dropped like an hour before I got that phone call. And I was like, that's crazy. So this is how this works. Like people just text you, hey, can we go on the phone real quick? And then tell you information. And so, yeah, it was kind of crazy because first off, them saying like they wanted me to break the story, honored for sure. Yeah, that was definitely something. It's a humbling experience. I told them that straight up. Like, I really appreciate you for even thinking about it. And I make sure you tell Michael, like, thank you for considering me to be worthy enough to even break the story that he got injured. And so the source gave me all the information about what the doctor said, and I released a video about it on my Twitter page. If you haven't checked it out, go ahead and check out my Twitter page, Cory_Mose, because I gave a whole breakdown. But one thing I didn't say in that video was just the timetable. So the doctor, of course, didn't give a timetable because he thought that if you were to tell Michael, let's say like 2 or 3 weeks, he was going to try to do it in one. Like that's who Michael is.
Hold my beer.
Yeah.
Okay. You're right.
Easy money. And so that's who Michael is, though. Apparently, his last injury that he had surgery on, the source told me he recovered 6 weeks ahead of schedule. So it's not foreign to Michael to do that. And so, like, if you were to tell him this time around, like, hey, you got 3 weeks, he'll be like, okay, I'll do it in a week and a half. So that's why the doctor was like, I'm not going to tell you a timeline. He actually said, quote, like, at least the source tells me, he was like, I know who you are. Like, you're the kid that said Texas is going to win a national championship. So, like, I know exactly what your mindset is. And I'm not going to let you rush onto the field. And so we'll see how long. Like I said, it should be after the bye week against Georgia. But yeah, so they were giving me all this information. I'm on the phone, like trying to just basically remember everything. I don't have like a pen and paper. I'm still at the barbershop and I'm just taking this call. And I think that was the coolest thing to kind of think about. Wow, like this is how this business works. You stay in a market for a certain amount of time, you build relationships with the players, and then you kind of get stories and you get breaking news like that. Now, I hate that the national media somehow got wind of it, and I don't understand how they got it because my source is very close to the situation. Mm-hmm. So it's like if they didn't want it to get out, how did the national guy get that information? Well, yeah, sucks.
Unless somebody's tapped into the hospital, that's the only thing I can. That's the only thing I can think of. I mean, who knows? I mean, TMZ gets crazy footage all the time.
No, facts.
That's the only thing I can think of, which is, I don't know. That's a rabbit hole of questions that we got to figure out. But that's fire though. That's fire though.
Yeah, bro.
First breaking news story. I mean, shoot. Taaffe does a big thing on that defense. So how do you expect that to affect them?
I mean, it will be a big impact just because of his knowledge. Like Taaffe, if you ask anybody on that defense, Taaffe is the guy that puts everybody in their certain spots. And so he watches the most amount of film. He's the one that studies the most. Well, I'm not going to say that. I would say he's the one that retains the most and then executes it on the field. And so he's able to recognize things throughout the game and put people in different spots where they should supposed to be. And they all trust him. And so even like last year, if you talk to Jahdae Barron or Andrew Mukuba, two dudes that are in the NFL making big time plays. Shout out Mukuba getting an interception last week, by the way, against the Minnesota Vikings. But two dudes that are in the NFL, first round draft pick, second round draft pick. And they're like, yeah, Taaffe is the guy that's making sure we're in the right spots. And so he's just the mastermind behind that defense mentally. And of course, he also makes plays for sure. But I think that's the biggest thing that they'll miss is the mental aspect and just the IQ aspect of this defense. Now, if he's only missing, let's say, Mississippi State and Vanderbilt, I think they should be solid defensively because the guy coming in, Derek Williams, he started his true freshman year. And so he was out last year with the injury, but he's been playing. Like, it's not like he hadn't been getting snaps. He's been playing. He's in rotation this year. But now he's going to have all of the load on him when it comes to the amount of snaps that he needs to play more so than if Taaffe wasn't injured. And so that will be interesting to see how much rotation is there back there, because you also have Xavier Fields to me. He's coming in. He's had a couple good situational plays and different opportunities throughout this year so far. I know he played against Oklahoma, so that was a big time game for him to come in, because he had to come in because of injury during the game, and he was a 5-star guy coming out of high school. So that's another guy to look out for. Jonah Williams, another 5-star guy to maybe get some burn in Taaffe's injury, but I definitely expect Derek Williams to kind of be the guy to take over those snaps, and he's a guy that's been on the field in big time games. He played in the Sugar Bowl his true freshman year when they played Michael Penix in Atlanta. So it's not like he hadn't been in big time moments. So we'll see. But it's just an IQ factor. How does that all play a factor when it comes to this defense? And so, yeah, that's what I expect. But Mississippi State, like, they haven't played great. They went up and down. Blake Shapen, quarterback, he threw a pick late against Florida last game. They should have won that game against Florida, but in their own territory, well, in Florida's territory, just kick a field goal and you low-key win the game or go to overtime, and he throws a pick. So, I mean, that's just basically what Mississippi State's been like these last couple of years when it comes to SEC play. They're just right there, and they can't get over the hump. Remember, a couple of weeks ago, they went to overtime with Tennessee. Right there. They just can't get over the hump. And I think you mentioned before the podcast, before we started, 15
games.
Yeah, bro.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot. But that's the scary part. Wouldn't it be?
No, it's scary because like they're in all the games.
You know? Yeah, exactly.
If they're all one possession games, that is scary. Especially with this offense still trying to figure it out. I mean, we're in week 7? I think this week 7. They're still trying to figure it out. So, I mean, every game is for Texas is going to be. They're going to be learning themselves, learning arch, learning this offense, hoping that they can get this the run game going. So, I mean, you never know. I'm rooting for Arch. I'm rooting for this offense to get it clicking. I actually kind of do like Texas to just be decent, So
yeah,
I'm hoping that they can figure it out with this game where they can put some belt to some behind. Arch can get some people on his side because, I mean, bruh, it's rough for him on social media.
Oh, it's really rough. And now it's going to be even worse when it comes to media because, funny enough, with Taaffe, he's been coming into the post-game press conferences with Arch. And is it weird? Yes. Yes, it is weird. And I was able to ask the source. Somehow the conversation, after they told me about the injury, and somehow the conversation went to Arch. And I asked him straight up, like, is that Michael's idea to go on the podium with Arch? Or is that Arch's idea? Like, who kind of... And they were just like, Arch needs it. Like, Arch is... He beats himself up so much that he needs Taaffe next to him during media availability to, like, lighten the mood, to crack a couple jokes, because he beats himself up so much. And so I that was a hypothesis of like, okay, he probably needs Michael there to, make positive energy at the podium. And now that got confirmed in the sense of like, yeah, Taaffe is there to be his support guy. And so now he's not going to be there. And Arch is already not that great with us. So I can imagine now when Taaffe isn't right next to him, how bad he's going to be for the foreseeable future. And I hate it because Arch wasn't like this last year, and he wasn't like that over the summer. But as the season's gone on, as the national media has kind of turned against him, you can see it with us, with the local media, how he's kind of turned against us, and he just doesn't trust us and doesn't want to talk to us anymore. Which, to him, media is media, I guess. We're not all the same in my eyes, but in his eyes, we are. So that's also something to look out for with Taaffe being gone, is he can't support Arch during the availabilities anymore until he gets healthy. So, yeah, bro, definitely an interesting situation for Texas football. And they're going into a hostile environment with the cowbells. And to talk about that, we actually go over enemy lines with my boy, Sam He covers Mississippi State. He's one of the beat reporters for the Bulldogs. And so listen to this interview with Sam and I as we discuss the upcoming matchup with Texas and Mississippi State. And hopefully you learn something about the Bulldogs in this conversation. All right, beautiful people. We're now going over enemy lines where we talk to someone who covers a team that is facing Texas this week. And so this week we have Sam Sklar from the Clarion Ledger. He's a Mississippi State beat reporter. And Sam, first off, how you doing? I know it's been a couple rough weeks for the Bulldogs the last 3 weeks, 3 straight losses, but how are you doing personally?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Cory. I'm doing pretty well. Excited for this matchup. Mississippi State hasn't had a home game in basically a month, so it's felt like a long time since there's been a game at Davis Wade Stadium, because there actually kind of has been. But it's been an interesting season for Mississippi State, winning their first 4 games and starting 4-0, and now they've lost 3 in a row. So we'll see what kind of direction the season's going right now, but it's definitely been interesting.
Yeah, the last time they were at home, exciting matchup. Tennessee, tough finish there for the Bulldogs. Where have you kind of seen this Bulldog team maybe progress or not progress within that between that last matchup against Tennessee to now this week?
Yeah, I think they've had some issues offensively since SEC play started in their 3 SEC games they've played in a row. Pass protection has been an issue for them. They've had a couple injuries on the offensive line that have been a factor in that. But last week they were able to get starting right tackle Albert Reese back, and the pass protection, run blocking was much better. So I think they're feeling a little bit better about that going into this Texas game. Obviously, Texas, though, has a really good defensive line and just defense as a whole. So it'll still be a big challenge for them. But I mean, when you just look back to last season, Mississippi State was just so bad, really uncompetitive in pretty much every SEC game they played. Every single one of those losses was by double digits. And I think that the defense is so much better than it was last season, and actually has given Mississippi State a chance, and really has almost been better than the offense at times, which was kind of hard to believe going into the season with Jeff Lebby and all his offensive prowess and just what the defense was last year. But it's been an impressive turnaround for the defense.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, when it comes to this matchup with Texas, is that something that you're looking at that Kentucky game and the defense kept Kentucky in it? And so do you think that's something that Mississippi State can do this time around, with just trusting the defense and hoping that at some point the offense puts up 1 touchdown or 2 touchdowns to win this game?
I think that could be a path that, this game takes. I think it will be pretty low scoring. The secondary has been really good for Mississippi State, and it was kind of odd because that was like a question mark that a lot of fans had going into the season. Was they didn't really think that the secondary would be good, and it actually has turned out to be really good. I believe they have 10 interceptions already this season, and ranked towards the top in the country in terms of just passing yards allowed per game. They haven't done as well in terms of a run defense. So that's kind of an area where maybe Texas has an advantage, though it does seem like Texas hasn't been able to run the ball super great this season. So I don't really know if that is an advantage or not. But just defensively, Mississippi State just needs the thought going into the season was if Mississippi State's defense can just be average, that the way the offense is played, that this could be a really good team actually. And the defense has been, I'd say, average in the SEC probably, which is a really good step for Mississippi State. But it's just that offense that has just been hasn't been terrible, hasn't been all that bad, but it's just kind of off. I think a little bit what you're seeing with Texas as well is like it's not a complete train wreck, but I mean there's been just there's been troubles, and so if Mississippi State needs to find a way to kind of put that all together, which I think Texas is trying to figure out too.
Yeah, both of these teams are just like, what's going on offense? What's the identity? Do you run the ball? Can you run the ball? If you throw it deep, what does that look like? And I think for Texas right now, it's the quick game. It's like you don't have a quick game concept right now when it feels like with Arch. And you would think that with the lack of talent on the offensive line, you would try to implement a quick game to get the ball out of his hands quicker. But it just hasn't worked out that way. And so, speaking to some of the players this week, they were mentioning how the offense for Mississippi State, with Jeff Lebby, it kind of reminds them of the Oklahoma matchup in that system. And, Jeff coming over from OU. And so for that pressure earlier this week, did you Did Levy talk about Texas at all? If he did, what is something that maybe stood out to you when he spoke about UT?
I think the thing that stood out to me is that he said something along the lines of Texas seems to know what kind of team they are right now, and they are trying to play to those strengths. And I think that, everyone thought going into the season that Arch Manning in the passing offense was going to be a strength, and it kind of hasn't been. A lot of that maybe just because of the offensive line issues that they've had. But it seems like they know that their defense is still elite, and you're halfway through the season at this point. Like, that's going to be their way to winning games. I don't really see a path, at least for Texas, in my opinion, that all of a sudden the offense at this point is going to start clicking and everything's going to be amazing and they're scoring 30 points every game. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. So I think that was kind of what stands out to me. I think, at least from my perspective, I think that Texas has an advantage still, at least definitely on their defensive line compared to Mississippi State's offensive line. And so I think that's kind of where the X factor or determining factor will be in this game.
Yeah, you're totally right. Hey, just talking to Sark on Monday, he mentioned, at certain points of the game against Kentucky, I asked him about like punting the ball on, I think it was like 3rd and 8 on their own 45 or 40-yard line, and not kicking a field goal, but instead trying to pin them deep. And they pinned them deep. They forced a 3 and out, and then Niblett returns it all the way down to the 3-yard line. And then UT punches it in right there. And he's just like, that's who we are right now. We need to trust our defense to win the field position battle. We need to trust our punter to pin people deep. And then hopefully that shortens the field because our offense hasn't been able to move the ball down the field for a whole possession. And so you're right. I think Sark is figuring out who this team is, what they're great at, and what they're not great at. And I think right now, I think they're great on defense. They're great on special teams. And so leaning into that a little bit more is something that I expect them to do against Mississippi State. And I'm sure it's going to be needed in that environment. Can you just talk to me about the cowbells? Like, is it really like that? Like, is it really that distracting out there?
It's very loud. Definitely like one of the louder atmospheres. I can't say I've been to every single stadium, but I would think that it's got to be up there in terms of just the chaos and environment that it is. This is my second season on the beat, so I haven't been to, hundreds of Mississippi State games, but I'm still able to compare what it was last season to this season. And last season, just with the team being so bad and they were losing, by a lot already in the second quarter, a lot of the fans would just kind of leave at halftime because, what's the point in kind of watching those games? But the atmospheres at this season have been really electric. Mississippi State put in $9 million worth of renovations to the stadium from last season into this season, and that's just kind of amped everything up a little bit. Like it was mostly just catching up to what other SEC stadiums already had, like the LED lights and the sounds and things like that make games also a production and not just a football game, because that's also part of it. And so I think that it is very loud. The rule with the cowbells, of course, is that once the center is over the football in formation, then that's when they have to stop ringing the cowbells. And there are signs up in the stadium and that tell people when they have to stop ringing the cowbells. And so they've been pretty disciplined about it. Maybe not so much earlier in the season in the Arizona State game that they actually won. But, against Tennessee, I would say they were ringing their bells responsibly a little bit more. And so it's definitely loud and definitely something that's a factor that Mississippi State or that Texas is going to have to take into account.
That's crazy. I didn't know they had like a ring now, don't ring now. Like, I didn't know that was like a criteria.
Yeah, it shows up on the scoreboard, I believe. There's like a, rest your bell, I think is maybe what it says.
Okay.
It's been, a month since there's been a home game, so I'm trying to exactly remember. But I think there was also like some messaging that went out to fans, like leading into that Tennessee game specifically, like, hey, make sure, like, these are what the rules are with the cowbells. And I think people did a pretty good job. And I'm pretty sure also, like, because there were a lot of Tennessee fans at that game, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of Texas fans too who maybe traveled for this game. But, like, there were Tennessee fans who brought their own cowbells as well and were ringing them while Mississippi State was on offense. It wasn't that many, so, like, it wasn't, like, nearly as loud, but like people were talking about it all.
You still heard it though. Yeah.
So
that's crazy. Talk to me about Blake Shapen. He's improved from year to year. Second year now underneath this Levy system. And so, where have you seen his growth from last year to now this year?
It's been an interesting year for Blake Shapen. He's been healthy. That's the biggest thing. He had a season-ending injury in Week 4 last year, so he didn't play against Texas a year ago. That was the first game that Mississippi State had to start Michael Van Buren at quarterback, the true freshman. And this year he's been healthy, and that's been big. But there's been some struggles the last few weeks with the passing game, where things just aren't in sync. Some things are just are not in rhythm. Mississippi State, at least 2 games ago, when they played at Texas A&M, really struggled offensively. They scored on their opening drive and basically did nothing until the fourth quarter when they were already trailing by a lot of points. And so last week they were able to move the ball a little bit better, and Blake Shapen actually threw for the most passing yards he's thrown at Mississippi State in his 2 seasons. So statistically, he had a pretty good game, but he threw the interception late in the game that had them lose. I mean, they were in field goal range, with under 30 seconds left and a chance to kick a game-winning field goal and end their 15-game SEC losing streak that it's now at. But Blake Shapen throws an interception and then they lose. So he's been good, but there are definitely some weaknesses too. I think he's had some struggles processing reads a little bit. Sometimes he can stay in the pocket a little bit too long. But when Mississippi State's offense is at its best in the passing game is when it's connecting on its deep balls. Brennan Thompson is the team's leading receiver. He played at Texas as a freshman, then went to Oklahoma and now to Mississippi State. And he's been really, really good. He scored the game-winning touchdown against Arizona State in Week 2. So when Mississippi State is able to hit on those deep balls and then also rush the ball, that's when the offense is at its best.
Were you able to talk to Brennan this week? Just curious.
No, we did not. We talked to him 2 weeks ago, but not leading up to this game, though.
Yeah, I also do wonder about that. Like, is he motivated or is he like so far removed? Because you said he went to Oklahoma last year, so it's not like he just left Texas. So I wonder if there's any still bad animosity there. Because even last year against OU.
Moved on. I feel like he's probably moved on a little bit since it's been a few years, and he's an older guy and seems pretty mature and everything like that. And I feel like he's not one to, I don't know if grudge is the right word, but you know what I mean? Like have that extra motivation to take it to Texas. At least I hadn't had a sense of that.
Well, let me ask you something before I let you go. What will it take for Mississippi to kind of make this game interesting against Texas? What do you think is kind of like the recipe for success against the Longhorns?
They're going to have to pass protect is going to be the biggest key, because when we saw against Texas A&M 2 games ago when Blake Shapen was under a ton of pressure, I mean, the offense just couldn't do anything. And I think that this Texas front with Colin Simmons and some of their other guys is going to be a real challenge for Mississippi State. We don't know the status right now of Fluff Bothwell, the team's leading rusher. He didn't play last week against Florida because after he was carted off the field in the fourth quarter against Texas A&M, and it looked in that moment like he might be out for the season because anytime a player gets carted off and they're holding their leg, you're thinking the worst. But he avoided a major injury, and I don't think I don't know if he's going to play this week. It didn't really sound like it. I believe Jeff Lebby on Monday said it was going to be kind of a stretch, but Mississippi State still does have a pretty good running back in Devon Booth, who rushed for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. So if Mississippi State can just get a little bit of time for Jeff Lebby and Blake Shapen at quarterback, I think that will be what can put them over. But Mississippi State's lost 15 consecutive SEC games. It hasn't won an SEC game in over 2 years now, over 2 years. And so it's getting to a point where you're just not going to believe it until you see it. And Mississippi State was in position to kick a game-winning field goal last week at Florida, and then they find a way to screw it up. So, maybe that's a learning lesson or something for the whole team. But, it's going to be another challenge here for Mississippi State to try and break that streak.
Well, they were in a better position to beat Florida than Texas was in the swamp. So, I mean, that says something.
Look at it.
Yeah, I mean, that says something that maybe we can go there. But, Sam, thank you so much for your time. It's going to be an interesting matchup. Arch really a struggle on the road, especially in hostile environments. And this is going to be another one in Starkville with the cowbells ringing, and just so many different things happening offensively for this Texas team, which hasn't been great. And if they don't have that running game, like you mentioned, it hasn't been good for this Texas offense. And so maybe this is another low scoring matchup. And so I'm excited to see what all happens and how this plays out on Saturday. But where can people find your work, Sam?
All my articles are on the Clarion Ledger website at clarionledger.com, and I'm also posting them on X and Twitter at SklarSam_.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. Well, enjoy the game. Hopefully it is an exciting game. And hey, who knows? Maybe this is when you see it. Mississippi State beating Texas in the SEC game. That would be crazy. That would be so wild if that was a game. But yeah, I hope you enjoy the game on Saturday, and I'll talk to you later. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Cory.
Yeah, dope conversation with Sam. A couple of things stood out to me, Dion. I'm sorry you couldn't make it for that conversation, but it definitely was very interesting to me in the sense of Mississippi State. First off, the Cowbells, I didn't know they had like times when they can and can't ring the cowbell. I always thought they could just ring that mug whenever they feel like it. But they have times where it's like, you got to stop ringing or you can ring them now. That's crazy. Didn't think that was a thing. But the other thing, you mentioned this earlier in the sense of the defense that Mississippi State has and how they're one of the best in the SEC when it comes to getting interceptions. And that's something Sam talked about, was these DBs is something that they're sticky. They got sticky coverage. And that's something that the Texas wide receivers have struggled with so far is separation. They just can't seem to get away from DBs throughout this year. And so maybe that becomes a situation again against Mississippi State. If you're not able to separate against this secondary, how are you going to get yardage? And if the run game isn't working like it wasn't against Kentucky, that's a problem. And so, yeah, I can see this being another ugly game.
Yeah,
I really can.
I was just about to say that. This is going to be another, oh, brother, what are we watching? And like I said, that last game with Kentucky was, oh, man. And you were just waiting for like, okay, bet, hopefully they're going to go up sooner or later, and this just be, okay, they're just going to run the clock out. But that game was way too close for too long. And I hope it's not, I hope we don't have another week of that. But everything is lining up to where this is going to be another stinker. They're projecting it to be Texas to win by 7, so they're expecting another ugly game. So,
and I think at this point, like, Sark is okay with that. After talking to him on Monday, and I think I asked him a question about punting the ball on 3rd and 8, the ball back because the defense got the stop. Big return by Ryan Niblett. Got him down to the 2-yard line, and then they punched it in. And I asked, like, why not kick a field goal there? How does it kind of go into your decision-making when you're on, like, the 38, the 35, or maybe, like, the 40, and you're on that in-between where you can kick, like, a 55-yarder or a 54-yarder, which Mason Shipley has proven he has a leg for it. Or do you just want to punt it and just try to pin them deep, which Jack Bomeister has been doing a great job throughout this whole year of pinning guys deep. And he's just like, look, this is who we are right now. We're the team to pin people deep. We don't want to risk the field position of maybe missing that field goal. Instead, we'll punt it, try to pin them deep. If we pin them deep, great. They're within the 10-yard line. We trust our defense to not let them get a first down. And then we trust the special teams to get a big-time return or a good enough return to set us up for a shorter field. And that's okay with us. And he told me, like, 3-4 weeks ago, he probably would have went for it on 4th down. If you're in that kind of weird territory between the 40, 45, or 38-yard line on the opposing team side, he said, I probably would go for it on 4th down. But now I know with this team, I can't trust it.
Special team is probably the standout right behind the defense.
It's a weapon. Yeah. It's a weapon right now. So he's like, I might as well go with that instead of trying to force the issue when clearly our offense isn't working. And I think that's his maturity and his growth as a play caller and knowing this maybe just isn't the right group of guys right now.
Yeah, you got to adjust to your team. Got to adjust and try to figure out ways to get these wins.
And I think that's all they care about, bro. They don't care about what it looks like. Even though the Texas fans, if you're listening, I know you care about it. You care about, okay, it needs to be 30-5, 30-6, 30-7. It shouldn't be close. But maybe that's just what you have to change your standard to. Maybe all right. So let me know what you think about this, and then I'll end the pod. I think Arch right now, to me, he's Jalen Hurts. He needs a run game. He needs a great defense. He had a good deep ball. He can throw it. But when it comes to the layups, the short stuff, just getting it to your playmakers, he struggles. And so I think with that being said, if he has a run game like you saw against Oklahoma, he plays really well because you're not asking him to 3rd and 12, 3rd and 13. You just ask him to complete a 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 4. And he excels in that. Out the pocket, Arch is great. When he moves, when he's on the run, when you roll out, when you do bootlegs, like he's great. But in the pocket, with not a lot of time, you've seen the issues and you've seen the struggles. And so that's why I think, to me, right now, he's comparable to Jalen Hurts. And at the end of the day, what does Jalen Hurts do? He wins.
He's a winner.
He wins games.
No matter how ugly.
It is. Exactly. And so that's why I'm like, I think Arch has a little bit of Jalen Hurts in him right now. It's like he's going to make throws when he needs to. He's not going to make every throw, and he's not going to make the easy throws, quote unquote easy throws. But there'll be a couple throws in there where it's like, oh, all right, I see it. He does got that arm in there. And so I think he depends a lot around the people around him. He depends on the people around him. And just like Jalen, he does the same. So am I tripping? What you think?
I'm so sick of him. I'm so sick of Jalen Hurts. I guess I can see what you're getting at, but I'm so tired of hearing his name.
I know your fantasy team had to been.
This weekend was a good weekend for my fantasy. Well, I ended up still losing, but AJ Brown got some love this weekend. So, but yeah, I see what you're getting at. Like I say, you just hope that he can build on the easy stuff. I think if he can just get down to easy stuff, it's such a big jump. If he just gets the easy passes, the wide open passes.
Yeah.
We talked about it. There are a lot of plays that are people wide open running by themselves, and he just happens to sail it over their head or, throw it way to the right or way to the left. But if he can just get those simple passes, it'll be a huge jump in his game. So we'll see what this looks like. My final thought for the episode, man, the Thunder look like they finna repeat. Shout out to the boys.
Boy, had to throw it. Hey, shout out to NBA season starting up. You're right.
Shout out to them boys. Lakers got that. They look bad.
No LeBron out there. Makes sense.
They look bad. I'm excited to see how the Lakers fans kick Aiden's back in the season. That is going to be a funny storyline this year. What you got, bro? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, Rockets look solid. They took them to double OT with the Thunder, so that's big time. The big lineup looks good. Alperen Şengün, he's a problem. We knew he was a problem, but he's shooting threes now. That's crazy. Consistently too. But San Antonio, I've been able to cover the Spurs a little bit more this year. So if you're listening in, hey, I'm having a lot more Spurs coverage on my feed. So go ahead and tap into that. They play. We're recording this on Wednesday right now, folks. If you're listening to this on a different day,
tonight with the
Mavericks,
right?
Mm-hmm, yeah, season opener in Dallas. In Dallas right now, they're tipping off in a couple hours or maybe 1 hour, and so I'm excited to see what the Spurs look like this year. I know we talked about it, about where does the Spurs kind of sit? Are they going to be a fringe playoff team? Are they going to be a play-in? But Wemby said it at the podium on Monday. He said the expectation is to be the 6th seed. They're not trying to be in the play-in. They're just trying to make the 6th seed.
Which I told Cory is very possible. The West is not as deep and as sexy as people think it is.
I think it is, bro. I think there's a lot of teams that can really compete. But just like the SEC right now, a lot of teams that can compete, man. And so we'll see what happens this weekend. Texas versus Mississippi State. Cowbells will be ringing. And hopefully Arch has a good away game for the first time this season. But as for right now, thank y'all so much for listening in on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, wherever you're tuning in at. Please like, comment, subscribe, repost. And thank you so much for spending your time with your boys. But Dion, let's get out of here.